What is up, everybody, and welcome to WMMA Mania Episode 8. I am your host, Drake Riggs, here to bring you yet another good old fun lineup of discussion with everything going on in the world of mixed martial arts when it comes to the women. My oh my, we have quite a stacked lineup today. We are likely going to go overtime, but we're going to do our best to fit everything into that usual time slot. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here today. And apologies for the inconvenience yesterday, as the show is a Monday show, but today is Tuesday. I had no power for about 5 hours or so. It was very, very snowy, and it is still snowy outside a little bit over here and chilly, but in April, can you believe it? That is Washington weather for you, but we're here today. We're all good to go. Wi-Fi is still shitty, but that is just an ongoing issue. We've made it work to the best of our abilities since then. So anyway, if you guys are here for the first time, or if you're not and you have yet to like the video, just get it out of the way. Give it a little click on the like button. Does us wonders, really helps out. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit the notification bell. Follow on all platforms at MMAmania.com. I am at DrakeRicks_. Yes. Appreciate it all. But as for the lineup today, we will be looking back at UFC 273, of course. What an event that was. Plenty to discuss. Deep Cage Impact 2022 had the Siwoo Park fight on it, which we will gloss over that one because I still have yet to see it, but worth mentioning because that was an important one at atomweight. Plenty of news. I'm sure some of you guys are very excited for one of those. I think we all are, if we're going to be honest. If you're a real MMA fan, you are very excited for one of today's news lineups in particular. And then we will get to UFC Vegas 51, preview that show. And it is RIZIN 35 week, you guys. My oh my. The rematch is upon us, as you can see there on the cover photo. We'll be talking about those two highly important atomweight fights as well. So, woo-wee. Let's just get into things, shall we? What is up, everybody? Ghost Phantom is here. Rain is here. James, Jimmy, good to see you as well. Rue, Citro, good afternoon or night, depending where you are. Indeed, good times, no matter where we are in the world. Jin says, will we get to see a ghost rant about K. Hansen and Andrew circling? You'll have to wait and find out. Happy Tuesday, Mr. Riggs, says Alvin. Happy Tuesday to you, sir. Yes, it feels weird to do a Tuesday show, but I guess pre-programming note, we'll see. Next week might also have to be a Tuesday. I will be on the road again. First time for 2022. So to be determined. We'll see how the schedule shakes out and if we can get it done on Monday or Tuesday, or if we have to skip a week, we'll have to wait and see. But either way, we're here today. Let's have fun with it and start getting into some of these fights and whatnot. Everybody loves a little whatnot, right? MMA is full of them. So UFC 273 this past weekend went down. We had 3 fights, 3 decisions, some controversy, maybe, depending how you felt about it. In this first fight we'll talk about, which was the important top contender battle at strawweight between the BJJ wizard, Mackenzie Dern, and Tisha Tiny Tornado Torres. Mackenzie Dern ends up getting it done. An upset on the odds via split decision, 28-29 and 29-28 in her favor, ×2, that is. So, this fight, I mean, it went about, for the most part, I mean, in terms of a rough outline of how it played out as expected, because we knew that Mackenzie Dern would be the bull in this case, with Tisha being the matador, and that is exactly how the fight started. She just pretty much ran at her rather sloppily, which is no surprise there. But hey, got to do what you got to do. Try and get in close, I guess, if you're Mackenzie Dern. And she ends up walking away with the split decision here. I personally did not think that she won the fight. I scored this 29-28 in the other direction, which was first round for Torres and the third round for Torres, which the numbers will support that, as you can see. 37-28 in that first round, and then 39-22 with really not too much control or grappling going on there, as you can see with those numbers. Whereas the second round was a whole different story, and Mackenzie ended up getting some submission attempts there, jumped on her, and was working for a Kimura, which was pretty crazy to see that kind of whole sequence unfold. And I didn't think that Tisha was in a whole lot of danger just from like looking at that. But then you remind yourself, oh shit, I'm watching Mackenzie Dern. This is very possible she could pull this off. So there was that kind of thought going through my head as that played out. But ultimately, she hung on and powered through. But it still wasn't enough for the judges in the end, despite that third round. So this was a much more stereotypical, I think, Tisha performance, striking wise. And I say that as in pre-current, the winning streak she was on before this, because like I said, and I think we talked about it last week, probably the key to her winning streak that she was on, I believe was, or like the big changes she made was her aggression. She got a lot more aggressive. Maybe not a lot more, but more so than she was usually with her striking, and it was working out. But against Mackenzie Dern, you were going to leave yourself open to some issues in that case. And hey, surprise, surprise! If I'm remembering correctly, Mackenzie did at least catch one kick in this fight. So hey, she's learning. We were talking about the possibility of her doing that and not doing that against Marina, but she actually, if I'm remembering correctly, she did catch one in this fight and didn't quite capitalize on it, but it's a sign of improvement, so that's good. Still not too great at takedowns of any kind, so that is still something we are waiting on. But hey, one step at a time, right? And as James asked right off the bat, there was robbery. No, as I said, well, I guess I didn't say it if I thought it was a robbery, but no, I think it was pretty close, but it was close enough to where I don't think it was a robbery, but I did think that Tisha won the fight. So I know this could be one of those cases where you look at, you really kind of have to dissect the impact of shots versus volume, even though I think it was still pretty balanced in that. And then obviously I edged it to Torres regardless. So it's an interesting one. I don't think it was a robbery. No, I know a lot of people feel that way, and I will say this every time, but close fights are not robberies. That is probably one of my biggest pet peeves in this sport. Definitely not the biggest, but it's right up there. Right up there. As Ghost has some criticism where he says, I usually don't moan about decisions, but I will for this one. I don't understand how you can give Dern round 1 or 3. All right, there we go. Especially 3, since she was completely gassed at the end and not doing much. Numbers will support that to some extent. It says Dern has fought the same way she has in her last 3. She still is out of control when she tries to throw her right hand, and she follows people when trying to clinch. Very much so. Why should we expect her to get any better? I think with her at this point, Ghost, it might be a case of where she's going to need some losses will actually be good for her. Like if she was to have ended up losing this fight, maybe it would have been an eye opener of like, oh, what do I need to change? But she ended up getting by. And like if some fights like the Marina one stacked up, 1 or 2 more, kind of act as an eye opener to get her to, I don't know, hone in on some things more. But maybe she still will, despite the win. But sometimes actually getting a loss will be the biggest help. So, as he says, Dern had trouble with push kicks to the body and lead leg in open stance, which were 2 weapons Dern couldn't handle against Rodriguez, but media still gives her a pass for some reason. Yeah, I think that's fair. But at this time, she was the underdog, so I don't know if that's necessarily a media thing, but yeah, she's doesn't get criticized as much as maybe she should, at least in terms of how far she can go. I think it has definitely toned down since she lost to Ribas and Rodriguez, but and that's not me also saying that she should be criticized necessarily, like go and do it, be mean to her. That's definitely not what I'm saying. We're all about the positivity here, but yeah, she's definitely far from a perfect fighter. Fantastic jiu-jitsu. We know this, but still has a long ways to go overall. James says, how come when Mackenzie says she has had a knee injury against Marina, all the media says, oh, she'll do better next time and be back better than ever? Didn't really see that, honestly. I do not recall seeing that. And I don't even remember her saying the knee injury until like a couple weeks ago. And James making a comparison. Excuse me. James making a comparison. But when Whaley says she needs to fix things like making the crowd, dry throat. Hold on. Making sure the crowd doesn't distract her. Make the proper adjustments by seeking help and improving herself. The media makes fun of it. Well, I feel like this is something I feel like this is a comparison that gets brought up a lot, James, with whoever. Doesn't have to be Mackenzie, obviously, but I think we've went over that enough. Honestly. As Rue says, Drake, you have said that Dern needs more time to improve. Yes, she's been in the UFC since 2018, same as Whaley. Whaley added something different to each of her fights. What has Dern added? Well, okay, another comparison there. Don't think that one is necessarily the same thing, because look at how much experience Whaley had in MMA before the UFC. Rue, like, what, she had 17 fights at least. She had definitely double, maybe triple how many Mackenzie had getting in there. So that's how I look at that. But you're saying, what has she added? I mean, her striking has improved. Her striking has improved. It used to be, my goodness, some street fight stuff, some street fight swanging and banging, but not by a lot. And her jab has gotten good. As Ghost said, she does have a solid jab more often than not, but you got to build around that. As he says, I don't understand why she gets a pass for not improving herself. I don't know, hypnotized by the jiu-jitsu, I think. One of those things where someone's so good at one thing that you can overlook all the rest. Look at Ryan Hall. Same kind of thing, I think. As Jin says, I thought this was a robbery. Dern hit her one time. There you go. Ghost doesn't think it was close either. All right, so robbery claims on this one. I'm definitely interested to rewatch it, but I thought it was close enough. I think it was one of those close but clear fights, which I do believe is a thing, but I wouldn't go robbery on this one. But again, I'll watch again. Centro says, didn't Dern get kicked out of the Fight Lab, a highly regarded gym? That's pretty telling. Yeah, the story on that was never too clear to me. I don't really know or remember hearing about specifics on what exactly happened there. But yeah, Fight Lab does not mess around when it comes to drama, that's for sure. So maybe, who knows? Who knows? I know that much. I'll tell you that. Sim says, I thought Torres looked great and should have won. All right, there you go. Yeah, I mean, I thought she looked just fine too. As that one says, fantastic fight. Chuck saying knee injury equals using crowd as an excuse. Not quite. Both. I mean, whenever anybody says anything after a fight, it's going to be looked at as an excuse. I think we know that by now. At least we should. We should. James says, I think that's a fair question. Don't you think some fighters get favored over by others by media? It's getting annoying. 100%. 100%. It's not, I mean, man, James, just look at the entire rise of Conor. And then even afterward, look at Nate Diaz. For me, if we want me to go on my soapbox here for a sec, like, we should not at all be discussing some of the fights Nate Diaz gets discussed. The Dustin Poirier fight, I'm glad, and that better not happen, because I have no interest in that. That is an easy walk in the park for Dustin Poirier. He could be fighting someone much more exciting and fun to fight, at least competitively. Sure, it might be fun to watch from a one-sided beatdown perspective, but Nate Diaz is one of those guys as well. And I mean, Nate Diaz not anymore after the last fight, I don't think, but yeah. Centro says, thought it was a robbery. Alex is here. What is up, sir? Peace to you as well. James says, this is what I'm saying. Whaley fixed her problems, but she still gets trashed on like right now. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, you know how it is. You know how it is. Jen says Whaley was humble enough to ask for help and move her camp to a different country, but she still gets made fun of. Yep. Yeah. We've gone over this. We've gone over why that happens, unfortunately. But you know. Don't need to run it into the ground. But that was the strawweight fight at UFC 273. Enjoyable, questionable decision. Obviously, I'm kind of surprised that you guys thought it was so much of a robbery. I will definitely need to rewatch that and see if it changes my thoughts. But I'm sure I'll still think Torres won, but just how distanced it should have been, I guess you could say. But anyway, before we move on, Alex says, I thought the second round of Dern versus Torres was more entertaining than any round of Hamza versus Burns. Why do people love boxing so much more than BJJ? It is easier to understand punches than grappling, I think, Alex. But yeah, that was certainly a very wild round indeed. And I love that you loved that more because, yeah, that was an enjoyable and smart and an intelligent kind of fighting chess match unfolding in that second round compared to, maybe some more brawling. Not that, Hamza versus Burns was a total brawl. They definitely threw down, but it wasn't super sloppy. So it's easier to, relate to boxing than BJJ overall, I think. And Nunes here, she says she thought Dern lost as well. All right. And yep, Chuck, same thing was what I was saying, preaching that striking is easier to understand than grappling, especially for casuals. And Rue says, if Ghost 2 doesn't really complain about decisions, complain on this one, something is wrong. That is a good point. And he even admits that he is not one to necessarily say, but I'm glad he did. You got to speak up. I think it is, you guys know me, completely fair to judges. So as we move on here, what wasn't controversial was Raquel Pennington. Rocky P keeps on keeping on, defeats Aspen Ladd via unanimous decision. If I could speak, unanimous decision, 29-28 across the board. Agree with that fully. Raquel, man, I thought she looked great in this fight. She is really on a tear right now. 4-fight winning streak. Not completely turning things around, because you really look at it, she only has lost to the best. Nunes and Holly are like the only fighters who have beat her in the last who knows how long. And I know we looked at it last week, but man, yeah, this was a great performance by Rocky, I thought. And part of that may have been because of boneheadedness from Aspen Ladd, because we got to get that out of the way. First of all, we talked about the potential weight issues here, which have always been a thing when it comes to Aspen Ladd. But hey, she took care of that, made weight just fine, looked fine on the scales. So if that was to happen, and that did happen, there was reason to believe, all right, we're about to get some vintage Aspen Ladd here. She's going to go in. She's going to be the bull. Again, bull and matador type of style. We got a lot of questions about that last week. Practically how it played out. But when she does that, it's typically to engage in her wrestling, which she didn't do at all until it was far too late. And it fucking worked. I'm sorry, but this shit drives me crazy. And I was watching the event with some of my friends, and I was just so frustrated from an Aspen Ladd perspective. Again, I thought Rocky looked awesome in this one. Really clean. Just everywhere on the feet in this one. Of course, took some shots, but she was slipping very nice, landing combos. Didn't need too much work on the clinch she landed some knees. She's always going to do that. That is one of her best areas. We talked about the dirty boxing last week as well, but it just drives me nuts when fighters who have such an obvious strength, and this is different from Mackenzie Dern, but have such an obvious strength and path to victory that at least should be attempted or mixed in to make a fighter think they're going to try and do it. And then they don't, if that makes any sense, because just look at the third round. That's all you need is look at the third round. She decides to go for the takedowns, gets them, wins the round. But before that, it says takedown attempts. At least it says she went for it one in the first round, but I don't remember that. That's some lazy, whatever they're counting that attempt was is very lazy, because she did not try whatsoever. Completely walked it. Rocky in each of those first 2 rounds. And again, we do know that Raquel has fantastic takedown defense. Very rarely, if ever, see her on the ground. Aside from that 3rd round, that was a unique thing to see. But you gotta test it. And for Aspen Ladd, who is one of the best wrestlers and the best ground and pounder in the division, and maybe among most all women, really. Why? What are we doing here? Like, it might be time for a camp change. And I know that's not going to happen because she's, in a relationship with her coach, which, hey, that's a whole nother topic we won't get into. But man, that's just frustrating. Like her striking is improving as well. That was something I criticized last week a little bit as well. But I mean, to hang against someone like Rocky, which she did hang, but once you see it's not working, you gotta make the adjustments and especially try, at least mix in what you're good at, what you're best at. It just blows me away sometimes. And I know perhaps easier said than done. I'm not the fighter, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But when you've watched and seen how things have been in the past, I can't help but feel that way. So that's 2 losses in a row now for Ladd. She's 1-3 in her last 4, and that's including the time away, the GDR loss. I just think something needs to change. Something is, yeah, that was frustrating. But again, Rocky looked great. Keeps on keeping on. As Ghost says, I do agree with Drake. Close fights are not robberies, but this one was clear for Torres. Yes, thank you, Ghost. I think that is definitely something that we should mention more. But yeah, all right. Yeah, that's fair too, that this one wasn't the case, maybe in the last one, I mean, for Torres. And he says, Pennington did a great job in this fight. She threw her rear hand from open stance and followed up in combination. And then he says, what I don't understand is why Ladd's corner had her go southpaw. All her best connections were done on the retreat when she accidentally went orthodox with left hand. I didn't even mention that. So, like, she made some changes, I guess, but they were not the ones that she should have made. And then he says, then you could hear a corner say, go back to southpaw. She was supposed to try and confuse Pennington, not herself. What was her corner trying to achieve with the stance change? Whatever they could, I guess, man. It again, this was I don't know. I don't have an answer for it. I don't have an answer for that corner work. As Chuck says, Ladd hasn't said anything, but I think she fought injured. She never fights southpaw and barely went to her wrestling. That could also be a thing. Time will tell if she opens up about that. But I mean, if we're going to judge by the last fight, which I guess maybe we shouldn't, the Norma Dumont fight, since it was rusty or an extended break between time and then the weight change. It's tough to look. There's so many little elements about her career, but as of right now, we know that we don't know if she was or not. So, yeah. And James says, I thought all the ladies look good except for Hanson. We'll get to that. Alex says, Aspen Ladd becoming one of the most frustrating prospects at MMA. So much potential. I can't help but think there's something wrong with her fight preparation. Exactly, Alex. Yeah, perfectly said. As Jen says, doesn't Ladd have a good lead hand? Why did she make it so hard on herself by going southpaw? Go said that close stance is the best way to shoot on people since the distance of shot is closer. Yeah, it's something's going on. Cintra says, does Rocky have a good jab? I thought that staying at southpaw was a good way to eliminate the jab. Yeah, but again, it's just all, I can't even wrap my mind around it. Chuck says, the old saying, don't dip your pen in the company ink should be adhered by more MMA gyms. Oh, that's for sure. That is for sure. As Yuna says, Drake, I have a question about opinions. Whose opinion in the MMA space are valid besides yours? Are there any bad opinions? Well, a bad opinion is an opinion. So, I mean, you can take that as far as you want. But yes, in my opinion, of course, there are plenty of bad opinions out there in the MMA space. And I appreciate that compliment, by the way, saying I have a valid one, which I don't necessarily agree. I definitely don't think I'm all too smart or anything, just trying to do the best I can. But yeah, there are plenty of people out there in the MMA space who have very valid opinions. And, there's some of the obvious names. It depends on what you're looking for, though. If you're looking for stories, if you're looking for news, or there's so many different types of, content that you can get in the MMA space. So I could rattle off just a bunch of people, but I like to be specific when we can. So Rue says, when you watch DJ versus Rodtang switches southpaw to avoid takedowns, which was smart, but that didn't make sense in this situation. Yeah. And Rodtang is also quite a good striker. So yeah, that was the bantamweight fights. Interesting one. It was a fun fight. I enjoyed it thoroughly from pretty much a Rocky perspective. She looked great in that one, and Lad did land and have some decent exchanges in those first two rounds. But man, it's just like I want to see, especially for someone like her who's had all these things around her, answer the questions a little bit. And she left us with way more questions than answered. So, and Jin does ask, was this a coaching issue or a lad issue? It's probably a little bit of both, honestly, because sure, you can take all the advice and listen as much as you want, but you can also adjust on the fly, on a whim, whatever it is. But in this case, I might lean towards coaching, but still, she should have known to try and incorporate the takedowns at all in those first two rounds. Because again, it worked in the third. That's the thing about this, like, figure it out too late. I don't know. And then, I didn't even mention this, but she thought she won. She still thought she won. So that's a problem. That might be the biggest problem. She thought that what she did actually worked in the end. So yeah. That's man, interesting time. And if you guys didn't see that, well, first of all, she she said something when she didn't get her hand raised, and then Raquel said in her post-fight interview backstage that Lad told her, well, I'll see you again, or whatever. Yeah. As Ghost says, Lad did crack Pennington when she was in Orthodox. I just don't understand why you wouldn't go back to that. Maybe trying to prove a point too much that she isn't just a wrestler anymore. It's quite a gamble if that was the case. But anyway, let's talk about Pierre Rodriguez defeating Kay Hansen via another unanimous decision, 29-28 across the board. This one was not questionable either. Kay Hansen, 3 straight losses in the UFC. I think many of us will agree that it probably should be 2. She beat Corey McKenna. Don't know. You want to talk about robberies? I know we've talked about that like 3 weeks in a row now, but that fight, robbery in my books for sure. This one, Kay started off real strong, and I don't know, faded down the stretch, I guess. I wouldn't necessarily say that she gassed, and we talked about that last week as well in preview, but just could not kind of keep up with just keep up down the stretch. I don't know. Pierre, though, if you do notice from at least her Machado fight, she did seem to get a little bit stronger and tighten up her game as the fight went on Contender Series, that is. And she kind of did the same thing in this one where she ended up getting Kay down in the third round and controlling there and doing some damage, stealing away the win after splitting it one apiece the first 2 rounds. So yeah, I thought Kay started off really well. I don't think there's any debate about that, but just ultimately could not quite adapt and adjust, which we've said it before. I've said it before. Thought that she was brought to the UFC too soon, despite all the fights she did have in Invicta. And now I would assume she'll probably be headed back to Invicta, which will be good for her. Still very young. 22, right? 23. Crazy. And she's 7-6 now. Pierre, not, we'll see how it goes for her too. These are two very, very young and green strawweights, so we shouldn't be thinking about doing anything crazy with them right now, especially in a division like strawweight, which is always kind of the thing when you think about strawweight, like, oh my, all this talent. But this fight was, it was all right. One of the less memorable ones on the card, I would say. But yeah, the big story here is obviously Kay Hansen just not regressing, but I don't know, maybe a little bit, at least compared to on the come up. I wouldn't say her opponents have been too drastically different in terms of skill. I mean, Jin was the most experienced one that she fought, right? And she ended up winning that fight after struggling a bit on the feet, which that shouldn't have been a surprise either. I don't know. As Centro says, I feel like this is the bane of Ghost's existence. Oh, I'm sure he's writing something up right now. As Rue says, I'm curious to know what Ghost thoughts on this. This seemed like the type of fight that he really doesn't like. Well, I think he said something off the top, didn't he? At the beginning of the show. As Esther is here, good to see you, Esther. How are you doing? She says, hi, I was rewatching all of Whaley's fights in the UFC. I noticed she's really good at making her opponents overcommit. How come the UFC put her with non-aggressive fighters like Torres and Taylor? Well, I don't know. It's just, well, for the Taylor fight, that one's just kind of, don't have an answer for that necessarily. That was her debut. But for the Torres fight, I mean, she was climbing up the ladder there. So that fight was one that she would have wanted her to have to continue to climb up the strawweight ladder. So matchmaking wise, that one made sense at the time and worked out in her favor regardless. But yeah, no, Whaley definitely is very capable and does well against fighters who get really aggressive at times. I mean, the Andrade fight may be the perfect example of that. It says Esther said, I saw that she's makes technical strikers like Rose and you want to overcommit that too. And all right, Ghost, there we go. Appreciate. He says, no, I said my piece for the last 2 weeks. No need for negativity right now. Yeah, so we can move on. That fight is one that ultimately has a sad ending, most likely for Kay Hansen, though. I saw the argument be brought up that perhaps she'll get another chance in the UFC because of the fact that Corey McKenna fight should have gone her way, but we'll see. We will see. Don't know. Either way, that was UFC 273. A fine card in the books. Not the best. We got really spoiled with the last couple events. So that one, I don't think was up to the same caliber, but it was still a fine, enjoyable watch, I would say. So, and he says, there's no point in repeating myself. Yeah. Hey, man, I feel like I do it a lot. So it's all right. As we move on to just pretty much a result reading, as at Deep Cage Impact 2022, Siwoo Park did get the job done, defeated Eric Koga via unanimous decision. I did not see this fight. I'm very eager to see it because two top atomweights, Eric Koga, a very young rising prospect herself, as you know. Siwoo Park gets it done, though. I have no idea how it unfolded, how it played out, but hey, the Park train keeps on rolling, holds her spot in the rankings after that big win over Reina, keeps the momentum going. Good for her. I'm sure this was fun. Siwoo Park fight's always fun. Eric Koga fight's always fun. Eager to see this one. I'm sure it will be uploaded to the Deep Jewels YouTube channel. So look out for that. But yeah, congratulations to Siwoo Park. That's all that we have to say about that, because again, didn't see it. I struggle more to find the regular Deep events than Deep Jewels events. So that one was not going to stand a chance for me. And I don't even remember which day though. I didn't even know that it was on last week. Chuck had to tell me. So all over the place I am these days. Just a mad scramble. So as Ruth says, was that Kay Hansen's peak? No, definitely not. No. Like I said, man, she's 22 years old. She's 22. She'll be around as long as she wants to be. I mean, think about it realistically. She could fight for like 12 more years. She could, even though she's fought like 14 times now in her career. James says, I thought it was good too. Rain says that card wasn't good on paper, but it was a good turnout. Lots of fun fights. All right. Happy to hear that. And Jimmy says, how can we rewatch this? The Siwoo Park fight. Yes. So as I mentioned, I'm very positive it will be uploaded to either the Deep YouTube channel or the Deep Jewels YouTube channel. And I will certainly tweet it out when that is up because I subscribe to the Deep Jewels Impact. I don't know. I can't tell if they're the same or not, but yeah, they have YouTube channels that they put up all the fights. So it'll be up there eventually, Jimmy, and should be a fun one to watch. As Alvin says, I have a question regarding Miss Buntan. Do you think she will ever fight in MMA? Alvin, I think she probably will, even though from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like she's too interested at the moment. And I know, shout out to Tommy T, my man, Tom Taylor over at SCMP, spoke to her recently, right? And I know that you probably saw that, Alvin, as your big Bhutan fan. But the reason I would say she probably will is just because MMA is all around her in one championship. And, they'll probably at some point, if she continues to do good and let's say rack up a bunch of title defenses and whatnot, go down as, the best at what she's doing right now, then they'll call her, they'll want her to go over and she'll be like, all right, sure, why not? Kind of similar to Stamp. That's how I could see it unfolding. But to be determined. So, all right, now we got the news, and I think we're making pretty good time here. We'll try and breeze through a little bit of these, but we'll save some more time for, I'm sure you guys will have many questions for the third bit of news, so I'll give you that right there, and you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. So kicking things off here with the first round of PFL lightweight bouts, which have been announced for the May 6th event. That'll be the third regular season event. Let me get the screen share up. I forgot to do it. As Kayla Harrison, of course, will be here and headlining against Marina Makhnatkina. So we'll talk about that in a sec, but let's look at all of them. We got that one. We got Jenna Fabian versus Julia Budd, which is down on the prelims. I don't like that, but I'm fine with that fight. What are you going to do? Larissa Pacheco versus Zamzagul Faizalanova. I think I did pretty well with that. I like that name. That's fun. That's a very fun name. I actually have not said her name out loud yet. Elena Kolesnik versus Abby Montez. You knew Abby was going to be in this. She had to be. Then Vanessa Mello versus Martina Yendrova. So, first of all, I will say that I really like that this is a good bit of difference and change in the lightweight tournament because I feel like we were kind of seeing recycling going on for a little bit. There are 6 new competitors now, right? Vanessa Mello, Yendrova, Montez, Zamzagul, Julia, and then Makhnatkina are the new faces in this competing in the tournament. I like that. Some freshness is always something I'm happy with. Off the bottom here, Vanessa Mello being in this is just kind of head scratching, ridiculous, typical of the PFL lightweight division formula, kind of. I mean, another one of those bantamweights who is coming up and not looked rough stretch in the UFC, as you guys know. That Sarah Morris fight was a fight that happened, and she did go out on a win, but my, oh my, here she is now with a chance at $1 million. So good for her, Martina Yendrova. Like her. Abby Montez, the woman who beat Clarissa Shields, called it. I will brag about that one. I told you it was going to happen. Excited to see her in this one against Kolesnik. That's a fun, solid first fight, I think, for her, for sure. Pacheco versus Zamzagul. I honestly am not familiar with Faizalanova at all, but I will definitely have to do some research and look into her. But Pacheco, clearly in the PFL, has been the number 2 lightweight. We'll see if she can not screw herself over this year as she did last season. Bud versus Fabian, that should be a walk in the park for Bud, at least in terms of just go take Jenna down. You'll be fine. Because we know that she's a great kickboxer, striker. And Bud can strike too, of course. And she looked great in the Caitlin Young fight, mixed it up well, which is nice compared to her last Bellator fight. But yeah, that should be one-way traffic. And we ultimately and hopefully will see Bud versus Harrison at some point. But Kayla, of course, taking on Marina Makhnatkina first. And I actually like this one. I am fine with it. Of course, Kayla should be favored. But Marina, another Bellator veteran, at least has she's a new face again, like I said, for the promotion. Has already had her debut, but a solid background in Sambo. Fought some good names in the past. Like she already is going to be top 4 opponent for that Kayla's ever fought. So I'm fine with that. I like it. I'm excited. I'm actually somewhat excited for this lightweight season. I think it's all the freshness, and of course it's probably going to play out how we expect, with that trio of Pacheco, Bud, and Harrison being the ones who will end up fighting each other in some fashion for the top spot. But potential wild cards here, of course, could be, Abby, Yendrova, who knows, maybe Zamzagul, Marina, depending. I don't know. There's some ways. I like it. I actually am pretty decently content with it. But that will be May 3rd when that kicks off. So yeah. Good stuff there. And the strawweight 125-pound division, Ayaka Miura is back, looking to rebound off of her loss to Zhang Jingnan, the Panda, in their title fight opportunity. She takes on Dayani Souza at One Reloaded on April 22nd. That is next week. As you can see here on the graphic, another fight card. As she drops all the way to about 5. Oh, so sad. But the Scarfold Armbar Queen, Ayaka Miura. See if she can get another one here, as she practically only wins that way. Anissa Mexen is also fighting Mari Rumet, as you can see in that atomweight Muay Thai bout. And those are the only, aside, this fight was already announced, Smila Sundell and Jackie Buntan, who Alvin was mentioning. So I'm sure he's very excited for that Muay Thai world title fight in the co-main event. Pretty solid one championship card. Good to see Ayaka Miura. Zombie, I always like watching her fight. And Imanari is also on this card. Didn't even see him right there. I knew he was coming back to one, but how about that? So, yeah. Now, before we get to the biggest news of the week, let's see what you guys have been saying. As Go says, I can answer that, Drake. I talked to her in a seminar 3 weeks ago. She literally said she is still not interested. All right. So that was in regards to Jackie Buntan in MMA. Very cool. Ghost got the insider info. And he says, Muay Thai is the only thing that on the girl's mind. You can pull that up, Drake. All right. Yeah. And I mean, I like that. It is good for her career as a Muay Thai fighter, obviously, to put full focus on that. I mean, she's got the title fight coming up. Come on. And Alex says, how do they invite Elena Kolesnik back but not Taylor Gordado? That's a fair point. I mean, yeah, considering how their last performances went, and yes, Taylor's was against Kayla, and she made it to the final. So that is a great point. I actually didn't think about that, Alex. That is pretty fair. Maybe they think stylistically Elena is more fun to watch. I would assume that might be it. Yeah. Great story, by the way, from Mr. Mike Heck over at MMA Fighting on her kind of recent story or struggles, in Ukraine. So go check that out. Shameless plug for that man. He deserves it. And Go says, Jackie actually finds it annoying people keep asking her about MMA since she said she's still learning Muay Thai. Yep, but that's what's going to happen when you are in a MMA promotion, right? So she'll have to get over that. As Chuck says, search Deep Office on YouTube for Deep's YouTube channel. Okay, there you go. A little secret Easter egg, perhaps, from Chuck. Because, it's hard kind of to find it just searching, especially in English. As Jen says, will Bud win this easy? Are you saying the tournament or the fight? Because like I said, yeah, she should beat Jenna Fabian easily if she fights and utilizes her skill set the way that she should. And judging by the last fight, I think she will do that. But the tournament will not be easy because of fighters like Pacheco and Harrison. She can. I firmly believe Julia Budd can win this tournament, but I wouldn't say easily. Citrus says, what are the paths to success for Bud's opponent? What techniques could she do to keep Bud off of her? I think she'll need to fight long. And I mean, that's really not difficult for Jenna Fabian, as she's like, what, 6 feet tall, something like that, and has that kickboxing background. Just keep her a distance, maybe not too many kicks, at least low. Maybe can throw in some head kicks there and, give her some looks. But I think Julia will definitely capitalize on those if given to her. But keep her on the end of the jab, keep her away. I just can't foresee her necessarily doing that, but that would be the way to do it. As Jimmy says, doesn't Kayla dominate since this division doesn't exist? Not this year, man. Like I said, I think, well, first of all, Larissa Pacheco is still around, and she has gotten better since they fought the last time, and Kayla couldn't finish her in either of those fights. So that is still an interesting fight, I think. And then Julia Budd is a top 3 featherweight in the world, the 3rd best, right behind Cyborg and Nunes. So that's one of those fights that Kayla needs to have, and then we'll really know, okay, all right, she is legit. Seven says, I'm super excited for that. Buntan is sensational. Yes, she's fun to watch. As Eunice says on Israel Adesany's UFC 268 breakdown, he described Weili as a sharp technical striker and extremely well-rounded. Would you agree with him in that assessment? Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that unless you're just a hater. And I mean, hey, the champ said it, so that's all you need. You don't even need my opinion, Yuna. I appreciate you asking, but yeah, he said it, so he knows much better than literally all of us. Esther says, what do you think of Pena calling Rousey a joke? I read in your Weili Zhang Remember the Name article that Weili was inspired by Ron to do MMA, as many women were. She was an inspiration for a lot of people to get into MMA. That is just a fact. But I mean, it's very interesting. Perspectives change over time for sure, and Pena saying Rousey has turned into a joke. I think there is some truth to that when you look at definitely how fans view her, and Pena's point was that she lost to and couldn't handle her losses, which that is objectively true. And then she ran away to WWE, which is a little bit of not a great way of putting it, but and a way that you can't really blame her for, because I mean, she's making bank and, got to support the family, all that. Do what you're passionate about. She's always been a wrestling fan, but I get it. I wouldn't maybe go that far, but I see where she's coming from, and definitely a lot of fans give Ronda far less credit than they should for what she did. But I think we all know that too at this point. So it's very 50-50, I think. But I'm not like firmly in agreement with it, but not in a disagreement either. I'm very on the fence with those comments, Esther. As James says, what are your thoughts on the 4-ounce Muay Thai gloves? I think it's stupid. I think it's very stupid. There's no reason to have the fingers exposed in striking fights, in fights without grappling. I don't like it. Unless they do 4 ounces that cover the fingers, which I'm pretty sure one doesn't do. I think it's dumb. Zen says the fight, Drake. Which fight? Oh, the fight. Yes. I think I know what you're meaning there. As Go says, I love 4-ounce Muay Thai, but it needs to be done in a ring. It's too hard to cut the cage. But then again, Buntan style and Muay Thai is perfect for the cage. All right. So there you go. Jimmy says, do you remember when a pound for pound list was made in 2019? Someone asked, where is Weili? And Weili responded with her actual location in Beijing. No, I didn't know that, but that is hilarious. That's funny. Taking things literal. She's doxing herself. As Chuck says, I find people totally miss not only the context in which Pena said that, but also miss the point entirely. They also conveniently ignore that Pena did prowess Rousey just before that. Of course. Yep. Always. It is always insanely easy for people to overlook the context, like you said, with the negativity, whether it's media headlines or what have you, just fans not just lazily reading or whatever it is. So yeah, that is true. But all right, you guys, let's talk about it, and let's try not use the whole rest of the show for this, but it's happening. It is happening as Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. 2 is set for UFC 275 on June 11th in Singapore. Remains to be seen if we will get 5 rounds for this fight. God damn it, we should. We deserve that. They deserve that. Do the right thing, Dana. And shout out to Mr. Oscar Willis of the Mac Life for trying to get him to do it, because it sounds like it was going to be 3 rounds at first, but damn it, we need 5 rounds for this fight. Would be an absolute travesty if it is not. So then, and I mean, there's only 2 title fights on it right now. They've done 3 5-rounders before. You can do it for this one too. Do the right thing. Do the right thing, UFC. But yeah, you know, it's one of those things where I'm not at all mad about this. The first fight, of course, one of the very best ever, maybe the best ever, depending who you ask. Totally fine with seeing it again. Good to see Joanna fighting at all. But for me, and when we talked about kind of the aftermath of Rose versus Weili too, again, I'm a guy who likes freshness, and with her coming off 2 losses to go to a fight like this, yeah, it's kind of the money fight, the big high profile rematch, all this to a certain extent, of course. I don't know. I feel like I would have liked to wait one fight between it, you know, instead of Weili facing 2 opponents in her last 4 fights. But again, you cannot be mad at a rematch of one of the best fights ever. So I'm not all out upset, but just maybe not necessarily the timing I would have done it in. But again, who knows if it would have worked out anyway. So might as well get it done while it's here, I suppose. As Joanna has not fought since then. So that will be interesting to see how she shows up. You know, if she's rusty, which I would doubt somebody like her would be. But you never know. You never really know. So James says, finally. Eunice says, yes, go Weili. Jimmy T. Magnum. Rue says, do you think Weili would go to fight ready for this fight? It wouldn't make sense if the fight is in Singapore. Well, Jimmy, obviously, geographically, it wouldn't make sense, but preparation-wise, there's sense to it, of course. That's a good point, though. I think because of the fact that, yeah, the location will play a part in this, to where probably won't happen. You know, Weili is definitely someone who in the past has been very, not geographically challenged, but there have been challenges presented for her when it comes to the geography of fights and what have you. So I could see it where maybe if she like goes like right now, because, you know, we got what, 3 months or 2 months, June 11th, almost 2 months to the day until this fight. Maybe if she was like to come out right now for a couple weeks, maybe 3. I mean, I don't know. It might not be worth it necessarily to her, but depending on what she wants, could always maybe have somebody come to her and they work in China until going to Singapore or wherever they decide to go along the way. I mean, she's done that kind of thing before, but I think to go out to, you know, the gym itself might be a little bit too out of the way. We'll see. That's a very good question, though. I think that's we'll have to keep an eye on that for sure. Essential says, would this be placed over the Whitaker fight? I think it should be. So yeah, that I forgot about that one on there. They're really stacking this card up, but yeah. So you have the main event, Yuri and Glover, then Valentina Santos, and then it's kind of between Whitaker and Vettori, and then this rematch. Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, for sure. In terms of just how insane that first fight was, 2 former champions, it's a bigger, more important fight than Whitaker and Vettori for sure. So that is the question, though, because I saw on the initial, they don't have a lineup yet, but it seemed like it was being put under there, which, yeah, it should be the third spot right below co-main events, and then 5 rounds. Hopefully, do the right thing. As Jen says, I'm so hyped for this. Weyley's improvements plus long layoff for Joanna equals fun. Very possible. As Esther says, what types of adjustments do you think both fighters should make in this? Well, good question that they should make. It's tough to say because, I mean, the easy thing would be thinking to make adjustments to where they get hit less and, it's less of a strenuous and damaging fight, but that's all what we want and whatnot. But the types of adjustments for Weili, which I think we will get no matter what because of the fact that she has begun that training with Fight Ready. She'll try and mix in the wrestling a bit more, and there were moments. Of course, it's so easy to forget. It is so easy to forget, depending on how much you've watched the fight, but it's so easy to forget how she actually did. There were some takedown and grappling exchanges in the fight that Weili initiated and, had some success there. Didn't last very long. Joanna, of course, has perhaps the best takedown defense you'll ever see at strawweight. So I don't know. Off the top of my head here, the type of technical adjustments that maybe Joanna can make, I'll definitely go back and rewatch this one again just for the fun of it and kind of look at what she can do there. But again, it's like they both had so much success either way that it'll be interesting to see how much they do change up in each respect. But I think for sure we will see more mixing in of takedowns from Weili and probably catch some kicks and get her to the ground that way. But it'll just be a matter of how long she can keep it there. As Rain says, do you think this fight will be the same as the last one? I mean, man, it's when you have a fight like that, just seems practically impossible to replicate. So I would be stunned. I think it's possible to be very, very good like the first one, but to that same level, that's like a damn near impossible hurdle to climb, Cintro says, do you think Weili should do a more patient approach or an aggressive one? She's good at cutting the cage and counter striking, but which approach would be best? Well, for someone who is as volume heavy as Joanna is, I think that, it paid off to obviously match her in that volume the first time around. So, yeah, I don't think that she should lay off too much. But again, that can be negated by grappling exchanges, like I was saying. So, Jin says, is it rare to have two technical fighters like these to have bangers? I think, yeah, for the most part. How often do we really see it? So this was just like the most insane case of that, obviously. As Alvin says, Weili versus Joanna, incredible. Indeed. Jimmy says Weili's takedowns were unorthodox in that first fight. She switched to more orthodox takedowns like doubles, singles, and body locks. What do you think of that? Yeah, very true. That's what's going to happen when you're training with Henry, of course, and the great people down there. So not surprising whatsoever. Refining the techniques a little bit, As Jin says, does it seem like Zhang Weili have a similar style to Volkanovski, that they use similar low kick strategies? Zhang is not as skilled in the terms of boxing, but could she learn from that style? Yeah, of course. Volkanovski is maybe the most well-rounded fighter. Him and Valentina, for my money, are perhaps, and Usman is very well-rounded too. But you look at people who can just do absolutely everything just so insanely perfectly. Yeah, it's not bad to try and learn from that guy. So Ghost says Joanna struggles with fighters that come straight at her. Well, I don't know if I agree with that, Ghost, and I'm sure you'll have more to say, but my mind immediately went to the Jessica Andrade fight where she came right at her and did not have very much success. So, of course, we've seen Rose kind of have her way in that area in ways different to that, still with aggression. And then obviously Weili and Valentina and all of her losses. Don't need to list them all off there, but you know what I mean. He says, that's what made the fight compelling in the first place. Two really good counter fighters that apply pressure. Yep. That is true. So it's gonna be fun just happy to see both of them with a fight ultimately, as we were waiting to see for a good while. Oh, all right. He says, my bad. I meant that do not come at her. Okay, yeah. Yeah. So that makes more sense. But all right, we will keep it moving along with the news. Feel free, of course, to continue asking whatever questions you want, you guys. Doesn't have to be specifically related to the exact topic, but we'll burn through these last two before getting to the previews, because we still got 5 fights to preview. Holy shit. So at strawweight, Gloria DePaula will be facing Maria Oliveira at UFC Fight Night, location to be determined, on June 18th, the week after that event, that UFC 275 event. So DePaula versus Maria Oliveira. Oliveira going back to strawweight, joining the UFC. She was a former RIZIN atomweight. She actually competed in the Grand Prix in 2017, a couple of years back when the promotion was getting off the ground. Has plenty of experience for her age, 12-5. Fought some good names. Gloria DePaula is what she just rebounded too. I don't remember what was the fight. I was just looking at it the other day. I'm blanking on it, but Gloria DePaula got her first win in the UFC. Wasn't Kay Hansen, was it? I don't know. I'm all over the place. Can't keep track of these prospects right now, but should be a good one. Fine with that fight. No bones about it. Total prospect battle, that's for sure. So that is going down. And then just, what was it, yesterday or early this morning, Deep Jewels announced the Flyaway title tournament semifinals, which will be taking place at Deep Jewels 37 on May 8th. And we have Rin Nakai versus Taya and Shizuka Tsugiyama versus Aoi Kiriyama. That is a rematch. Of course, this is how it had to shake out. We had to set it up, and we knew it was going to happen anyways. Rin Nakai versus Shizuka Tsugiyama in the finals. That is what we should expect. That is what we want to see. That's the fight. That's the fight, especially for the title. I mean, that is how Deep Jewels wanted this to play out. Pretty safe bet that they're going to get it. Kiriyama versus Tsugiyama. That should not go any differently than the first fight. Rin Nakai versus Taya. I mean, Rin Nakai, she's barely lost in her career. She's pretty darn good despite the lack of activity over so many years. So, and this will happen all on the same night, right? So I shouldn't say well, I guess the semifinals are still happening, but they'll fight their opponents, then the winners will face each other later on. So that's pretty cool. And honestly, I would still love to see Tsugiyama versus Rin Nakai under a normal circumstance where, let's say, they rematch with full camp specifically for themselves, even though they've been preparing for themselves anyway. But I'm already giving you spoiler alerts. Who knows? Upset is always possible, but I'd be stunned. And I want you guys, if you have not yet watched Shizuka Tsugiyama's last fight to advance the opening round fight, I want to get your thoughts on that, because after watching that one, I mean, there was some of the worst. The judges who scored the fight for Nirvana, I mean, that's not good. Because if you watch that fight, it was completely one-sided for Shizuka, outside of getting caught in that armbar late, which was pretty scary looking, but she survived. I see no way you should be able to score that fight for Nirvana. But hey, it doesn't matter, as Shizuka got the win, but that blew me away. That certainly blew me away. But yes, looking forward to that. Excited to see what else gets announced for that card coming up next month. Yeah. As James says, Drake, will you be rooting for Whaley? Well, James, trying to expose me here. I'm not supposed to pick sides like that, but I guess I have already admitted my favorites. You know who I like and don't like very much. So, yeah, I mean, I would definitely prefer Weili to win. From an overall strawweight perspective, and just out of I enjoy watching Weili fight probably more than Joanna, and just like her more as a person probably. But we've seen Joanna fight practically everybody so far. Rose is still the champ at the moment. We've seen her fight Carla. There's still more freshness around Weili matchups that she hasn't had. Seeing Joanna potentially get to another title fight, I'm like kind of over that for a little bit. Let her work her way up to it, which probably isn't a thing for her because she's kind of in a Holly Holm spot at strawweight and even Holly at this point, I think, has earned it. Like, do the same thing. If Holly beats Ketlin, she will have earned another title shot, and I'd be fine with it, I think. So I want Joanna to do that. Probably not the same case, but because of that, being in that spot, I'd prefer, Weili to keep the freshness, if you will. That's kind of what I'm looking at. And then all other factors, too. As Jimmy says, Ghost said on the Phantom Punch breakdowns, always talk about building foundations. How many weapons do you need to establish to build a foundation? Drake, can you answer this one too? Well, let's see. Ghost beating me to the punch says 1 or 2 things max. Any more than they are just trying random stuff. Once one thing is established, you can use that to use the threat of that to build on your entries. I mean, hey, can I disagree with the man, Jimmy? He takes it away for us. As James says, why wouldn't Weili versus Joanna be 5 rounds? Was Dana thinking of just making it that 3 rounds? That was the initial thought. Yeah, it is not currently set to be 5 rounds. At the moment, it is 3 rounds. Could change, as they have not officially announced it, but Dana did say it is happening in the post-fight press conference. 3 rounds at the moment. Hopefully, we'll get the 2 more tacked on. As Drew says, how did Tsugiyama look in that? She looked as dominant as ever. Honestly, she beat the brakes off Nirvana in her last fight. And then she just ended up getting caught in an armbar late, but survived. It was pretty scary for a little bit there, but other than that, she dominated her on the ground. Looked great. And then if you're talking about the Kiriyama first fight, dominated her there too. Finished her with ground and pound in like 2.5 minutes, maybe. So, yeah. As Chuck is not a fan of 5-round non-title fights, which that's fair, I think, unless you're not a fan of main events either. But for this one, I feel like we need an exception. I want 2 more on that fight. I want as much of them fighting as I can. So I'll disagree with you on that one. But more often than not, I guess I would agree. Depends. It depends. But you kind of lose the specialness to it as is adjusted to the fight. As Drew says, was it like Tisha versus Dern, but the right person won in Tsugiyama? No. I mean, the split, the scores for scoring for Tsugiyama, if she would have lost, then robbery, 100%, 100%. And that one's out on YouTube already. You can go watch that. But it wasn't a robbery, but it damn well could have been, Rue. So that's how I look at it. So it wasn't like Dern versus Torres, in my opinion. And even it was more dominant for Tsugiyama than anything Tisha did. Trust me. Go check it out. It was it blew me away to hear that some of the judges, one or two of the judges scored it for her. And they used five judges for that fight too. So yeah. As Jen says, Weili versus Joanna needs to be 5 rounds. Agreed. As Sintra says, do you think that Weili versus Joanna was circling, then doing the same exchanges like that? What Ghost hates. I don't quite know if I'm understanding this one. Do you think that Weili versus Joanna was circling, then doing the same exchanges? Like, I don't know. For some reason, I can't comprehend that one, Sintra. So maybe clean it up a little bit. As Chuck says, having non-title fights, title 5-round fights takes away from what helps make championship fights so special. That is true. A 5-round non-title fight, non-main event fight waters things down even more. As well, especially when you only do it for guys who don't even win those fights, the Diaz brothers. But I get what you're saying. I do get what you're saying. But yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, let's get to the previews. Try and go through these as quick as we can because I'm running out of time here. We've got 20 minutes left. UFC Vegas 51 is coming up this weekend. We got 3 fights. So we'll start things off with Estella Nunes versus Sam Hughes. Sam Page is still hanging around and what has to be her last chance here. 3 in a row. Yes, couple short notice ones in there. So she's getting the Hannah Cyphers situation. Luana Pinheiro, no shame. Loma, no shame. Looked all right in the Loma one. Tisha, yeah, we saw that went. So yeah. Estella Nunes, tough debut against Ariane Carnelossi. Back 5 months ago, as you see there, -200 favorite. Fought in one championship before that. Estella Nunes, very fun fighter to watch. Shaking the rust off, I guess you could say, against Carnelossi. Got dominated a bit on the ground there and ultimately finished. In this fight, I mean, we know kind of the secret. Ghost will mention it here, surely, unless he doesn't want to repeat himself. But if you apply pressure on Sam Hughes, she crumbles a bit there. And I think Estella Nunes can definitely do that. And if she doesn't do that, then it'll give Sam the opportunities to get a hold of her and probably try and grind her out, take her to the ground, which would be smart because, as we saw in the last fight, that is where Nunes struggled again. So, hey, that's kind of the path that we should see from each of them here. Apply the pressure, put it on. One of them needs to dictate to have success. Otherwise, we could be staring at not the most thrilling battle, I think is the best way to sum that one up. As Ghost appears to have understood the question more than I did. Absolutely not. The entries in that fight was different. So were the exchanges. The exchanges in Weili and Joanna had different things to it. Ghost says the fights I hate are when both fighters circle, stop, exchange, then repeat the cycle. Weili and Joanna were constantly adjusting to each other. Okay. And James says, is Nunes good at pressuring, though? I mean, I don't know if I'd say she's great or good at it, but she definitely goes for it. And Ghost says, yes, Drake, apply pressure, and Sam crumbles. All right. So we don't need to spend too much time on that one. No offense to both ladies or anything, but hey, we got other fights to get to. My goodness. And this one has been just going under the radar. I completely just forgot that it was coming up here. And that Lena Landsberg was even coming back, but she's coming back against Pani Kianzad as Pani looks to get back on track after Rocky got in her way, halted her momentum. And Lena hasn't fought since losing to Sarah McMahon 2 years ago. She is a mother now. That is why she's been away. Kind of crazy that Lena Landsberg has honestly lasted as long as she has here, because she came in for that. Her debut was at 140-pound catch weight against Chris Cyborg, if you remember, back in the day. Has had a mixed bag of results since then. Beat Gina Mazzani, I believe that was probably right after. Lost to Yana. Beat Tanya Evinger. Surprising one there. Tanya just couldn't put it together in UFC. Surprise win over Macy. And then the Sarah McMahon loss. So, again, kind of Lena's one of those fighters who, when she can't bully, when she isn't the bully, she gets bullied. And in a fight with Pani here, I think Pani's takedown defense has improved enough over this recent stretch where she'll probably be able to keep Lena off her. And we know that striking-wise, she has come a long way. I think she'll be able to piece up Lena on the feet no matter where it goes. And wow, I had no idea that she's 40 now. Holy shit. That's crazy. I did not realize that at all. I would have thought she was around like 33-ish. So, my goodness, she's coming back after 2 years against a tough Pani. This is kind of crazy. These odds are fair, I think. So, gonna have her work cut out for her. I think we could even see a finish from Bonsai, especially on the rebound. But essentially, yeah, I think this one comes down to Lena needing to bully Pani, get her against the cage, get her to the ground. Much easier said than done. Pani's takedown defense and grappling defense overall has just improved a whole lot. Like since she lost to Sarah Kaufman in Invicta. I believe it was Sarah Kaufman. kind of since her Invicta days, she's improved her grappling defense a lot. So, well, I guess Raging Panda probably took her down a little bit too, but that was also a while ago. So we'll see. As all right. All right, you guys, I want to get to some of these questions, but I gotta get to the fights too. So I'm trying to be a little bit quick here. I apologize. There's just so much on the lineup today. Yes. But as Jimmy does say real quick, I guess, should Lena try to catch low kicks on the low kicks in this one? Yeah, that would be smart if she could. But honestly, Panty, at least in some of her last couple of fights, not kicking a whole lot. I don't think she threw a single kick against Alexis Davis. So it would be smart to try and catch them if they're thrown at all, but we'll see if that does. And haha, Lobby CDQ, good to see you. He says this fight is giving me Stockholm syndrome. Well played. Well played. Because it is, yeah, the Battle of Swedes, right? Well done. Ezra says, how is Panties clinched? Does she use the single collar tie to set her elbows up? She does throw elbows in the clinch, but how well she sets it up is kind of up for debate. Very good. Been very good lately, though, just with her overall boxing game. So let's move on as we get to another bantamweight fight. Mayra Bueno Silva and Wu Yanan. So shameless plug. I did speak to Wu Yanan before this fight. You can check it out here on the channel right now or after the show is over. Either way, check that out if you haven't seen it yet. This is Mayra Bueno Silva's, I believe, debut at bantamweight. I believe. And holy shit, she is wow, that is stunningly disrespectful to Wu Yanan. Minus 400 favorite for Mayra Bueno Silva. Yes, Mayra Bueno Silva is actually fairly well-rounded. Did not show up for that man on fights. Had the draw with Montana De La Rosa. Before that, got the nice submission armbar against Romero Barella off her back. Had some very heavy hands. Threw down with Marina Moroz in that fight beforehand. Submitted Jillian Robertson. He's very good on the ground. Very good on the ground. So in this fight, Wu will want to keep it standing, even though she does also want to show off her improvements in the submission game, as she let me know. And it's been a rough stretch, obviously, in the UFC for her, as she is 1-3 in her last 4. Could really use a win, but she has changed things up for this camp by training at Jackson Wink, tagging along with Mung Bo, and working with Holly Holm, which it's one of those things where if you can trust these camp changes and adjustments to be made, which sometimes obviously works out, sometimes it does not, then you're going to be in a good spot here. And if Wu Yanan has learned from Holly Holm and can I think if she can replicate Holly, she's got the length to do it. 5'8". What is the reach here? All right, reach isn't too much there, but long legs, just a long frame. That's kind of surprising, actually. I feel like Mayra a little bit stockier, but at least in terms of height, there's the 2-inch there. If she can replicate kind of Holly's style, counter it up, because Bueno Silva is going to bring the action, work from distance, then she'll do very well there. But easier said than done. I mean, Jocelyn Edwards did fine against her, kind of utilizing not the same approach, but another long fighter. So she outstruck her there in that realm. And then Mizuki Inoue, that was a pretty clinch-heavy fight from what I remember. Split decision, close stuff. And then, of course, we'll go back to that submission, the armbar on the ground. But, I mean, I think it's fair to favor Silva, especially as Wu is also coming off a knee injury. Like, there's a lot of elements here, and still is 25. But those are some big odds. That's a big gap. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know, maybe 2-1 at most, but my goodness. I mean, we'll see how she, again, I believe this is definitely her first bantamweight fight in the UFC, so see how that plays a factor. And of course, Wu has fought at flyweight as well. That's when the Mueller win was, but see how she adjusts, I guess, to bantamweight. She could be more powerful. We'll see. So, yeah. As Sintra says, will MBS just cover up on this one? I would be surprised. I would be surprised. As Jin says, what range techniques does MBS have? I saw her just cover up against Manon. I mean, she kind of sloppily strikes her way into clinch and grappling exchanges. So that you can get away with that, obviously, in some cases, but that was just a weird fight with Furo. But yeah, Jimmy says, do you think it's a good thing to seek help for problems in your MMA game after defeat? 100%. Yes, no question about it. It's always better to try and learn and improve after a loss. Some people just stay in the same camp and do the same thing over and over again. Yes, that's like a comfort thing, and not wanting to admit if it's not broken, don't fix it. I believe anyway. So, all right. Well, that was UFC Vegas 51. I apologize, guys, for kind of the speed here, but I'm trying to, we got so much. We had so much to talk about today, and interesting bout order too. I don't understand whatsoever. The Panny versus Lena being below that one, and not on the main card when Panny is ranked. And I believe Lena, she shouldn't be ranked because she's been out for so long, but disrespect for Panny. Stockholm syndrome, indeed, as what was that Lobby said, or whoever. Yeah, Lobby CDQ. As Go says, Wu actually has buttery smooth combos. Butter combos is like wiping butter on the opponent's face. Oh my goodness. Well, he said it. Anyways, yes, UFC Vegas 51. That is what that is. As we get ready for the real action, which comes down the day after RIZIN 35. The super atomweights on display. Kana Asakura is welcoming the Shuto champ Satomi Sarame Takano to the RIZIN ring. This should be quite a good one. An important fight for both ladies. Kana, who needs to break her 2-fight losing streak. And then for Sarame, extend her winning ways here and potentially launch herself right into that atomweight elite tier mix, which has been shuffled all over the place recently. But hey, if you can beat Kana, that puts you right up there, no doubt about it. So this fight should be a pretty fun one to watch. I think Sarame has kind of come into her own. I honestly haven't seen too much of her fights, but from the ones I have seen, she's got some very solid, striking technique, I think, which is impressive for a judoka naturally. That's her background, and very strong with her abilities in that area, of course. But yeah, I like the way that she throws her kicks. Solid, tight punches, have some good power to them. Can do ground and pound, as we saw with the Miku fight there. Submissions. She's really capable of doing everything. And against Kana, though, we know she's best at wrestling. Has improved her striking plenty over the years, but hasn't paid off, obviously, against Hamasaki and Saori. But both those fights were not necessarily primarily stand-up fights as is. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out on the feet. And Sarame, somebody who has trained at AACC in the past, so has worked with Ayaka Hamasaki, who we'll talk about momentarily. It's a very interesting matchup on paper. We could definitely see another upset, but more often than not, in the big moments, Sarame has folded more often than not. Like I said, did not in her last fight where she won the title against Mina Kurobe. The trilogy fight finally got a win over her, and now looking to make it 3 in a row for Kana. That would not be good if she wants to get back to title line. Just 5 feet tall, as you see there. So a very fit for atomweight frame that she has. But I love that she is going to be in the RIZIN ring now. So a very happy, good addition. She is a top 15 fighter in the world. So this is well deserved. I'm looking forward to it. As Go says, Drake, if you didn't get it, it just means that she can't generate power when she does her nice combos. Thank you. Thank you for the explainer. Yes, my brain's moving very quickly right now, so maybe I didn't process it, but yes, it makes sense. Jen says, if RIZIN wants a ring, why don't they just make a square cage so people don't get rope burns or get pushed out of the ring? Well, Saki Gabara has always thought that it's easiest way to see. It's very easy to see through the ring, and I don't know. There's different elements about it. They could do square cage. They're doing a cage for the trigger events now, but I don't know. Square cage is a weird thing to me, but rope burns have never really been an issue. And they put a rubber type thing over it, I'm pretty sure. And they've tightened the ropes recently, so we should not see too many people getting pushed out of the ring. And we didn't see it a whole lot anyways. It happened sometime here and there, of course, but it was never a big issue. As Centro says, is there a way to prep for big moments? Man, that's a great point. I think the best way to probably do it would be like cornering somebody who is getting one themselves, and trying just visualizing, because yeah, that's something. Spoiler alert, as Broad Horizon episode 14 is on the way. Hopefully looking to drop that tomorrow, definitely before the fights this weekend. But I did speak to Sarame, so she is on this episode of Broad Horizon 14 that is coming out. And yeah, she said she's just kind of tried not to think about it. So that is how she's approaching it, and trying not to treat it as something big and special. So, but if you were to, I think it would be going to like an event, and I think cornering it. Honestly, you get as close as you can. That's the best way to try and visualize. So that's a good question, though, Centro. I like that. But yeah, very excited for that one. Gonna be good. But I'll tell you what, you guys, you know how excited I am for this fight. Man, it hasn't even sunk in. I feel like I haven't been able to fully hype myself as much as I wanted to for this, but I am one of my most anticipated fights, I dare say, ever. The super atomweight title fight rematch. Ayaka Hamasaki versus Sayaka Izawa. The true champ, if we're going to be honest, as much as we love Ayaka, Sayaka Izawa is the current, the lineal RIZIN champion, looking to actually get her hands on that gold and be able to say that she is officially the RIZIN super atomweight champion, as well as the Deep Jewels strawweight champion. She's collected belts at 24 years old with less than 10 fights. This woman is out of this world, ridiculously talented, just a freak of nature. And she's going to look to win twice in a row against the greatest atomweight of all time, one of the best fighters we've ever seen. Imagine if she does it, and she very well can do it. Obviously, she did it the first time, with passed the test with flying colors. Man, this is just something else. It is so difficult to imagine Hamasaki not making proper adjustments, and we've seen her in rematches before. She just had one against Emi Fujino before that fight, right? Which not from a loss, right? All of her rematches that she's had, she's won the first time, and then did lose a very close fight to Sohyam in that amazing trilogy fight. But another spoiler alert, Ayaka is also on this episode of Broad Horizon 14 coming out. So we talked about this, of course, and she said she's very excited, actually. She loves more than anything the idea of getting to avenge a loss, because she's never gotten to do that. Her past losses before this, left, and then the Livia Souza and Claudia Gadelia fights, she didn't get rematches for those, which made sense. They weren't competitive when they were at strawweight. So this is a new thing for her, and she seems very motivated by it, taking the loss in stride, and was ever so slightly injured going into it, but she says it didn't make a difference. She wasn't considering pulling out, just a slight little back issue that she had, but said she was surprised by Sayaka's ability inside the guard. I think that surprised a lot of people. So in this fight, it is there's just so many ways I could see it going, and I think it shouldn't be too different of a strategy or game plan from Sayaka. Like, why should she change things up? Why should she not try and get Hamasaki to the ground again? Worked out just fine. And even when it didn't work out and she was on bottom in bad positions, her up kicks were wonderful. She reversed positions. She got the triangle and then, ended up mounting, and she looked fine. She looked fine everywhere this fight went, and the first fight. And essentially, there wasn't too much time in the striking exchanges. They both had brief moments there in the minimal amount of time that it was there. But honestly, I think for Hamasaki, for Ayaka, just she can definitely make the adjustments to have success on the ground, undeniably. But I think for her, it's like, why bother? At least it should be. She should approach it like, why bother? I know that this girl is going to want to do the exact same thing to me. So let's prevent that. Let's keep her on the feet where I know I'm better than her. At least you would think if Sayaka can outstrike Hamasaki, then, I will lose my mind even more than I already have talking about this absolute star of a human. So yeah, for Hamasaki, I think she should want to keep this one standing the whole time, try and replicate a similar performance to, I don't want to say the Fujino fight, because that was definitely much more of a brawl than we're used to seeing, but perhaps something like the Ham trilogy, maybe even the Jin rematch, just find a way to keep it on the feet, utilize those inside low kicks, keep Izawa standing with you. And from there, she can do her thing and presumably take home redemption. It's so fascinating to see how this could play out, because I think that, of course, she has the confidence in herself to adjust on the ground. And I think if it does end up in a point where, let's say, Sayaka's on bottom in guard again, Ayaka's not going to want to play around with that. Go straight to half. That's kind of the impression I get from her, and she's smart enough to do that kind of thing. So it could be a very, very smart chess match type of performance from Ayaka. But again, Sayaka is just such a prodigy that who knows how she can scramble out of those positions. I'm so excited for it. I really am so excited for this fight. And yeah, as Citrus says, what can Ayaka do differently here? Which I kind of already addressed. Rue says, I saw MA decisions and saw that people say Torres won with 68 of them. Okay, wow. So going back to that one, I did not check the fan votes on that yet, but that's interesting. As Jin says, what can Ayaka do to reverse positions in this fight? So, essentially the same thing she did in the first fight, because there were moments where she, was able to reverse Sayaka's momentum, these kind of things. Use a little bit of that Kazushi, some off balancing, not quite in that one, but the judo. And they both have judo backgrounds, so that's pointless to say, but yeah. As James says, what does this do for Izawa's legacy if she wins? Not that I want Izawa to win. You can't not like Sayaka Izawa, though. Let's be honest. She's just like the most innocent badass of all time. What does this do for her legacy? Jesus Christ, man. I think already, she's still very early into building her legacy with just 5 fights and already being the best atomweight in the world. She's already cemented her place in history with the upset and being able to defeat Ayaka the way that she did at atomweight, no less. If she can do it twice, it's still hard to say legacy-wise, because, man, Jimmy, she hasn't even been fighting for 2 years. She hasn't been training MMA for 2 years yet. Not even. James, excuse me. Sorry, I always get you guys mixed up. But it's the best start you can literally possibly have. Like I said, she had the best rookie year of all time in MMA. So if she wins, she's right on track to being one of the best ever. And you could say she already is. I'm going that far. It's insane how good she is right now. As Rain says, can Ayaka strike at range for this one, like use stance switches and punch off of them? Yeah, I think so. I think she definitely can, but Sayaka is very good at striking her own way into her grappling, into her grappling exchanges, her takedowns. She did that the first time. I think maybe caught Ayaka off guard. So it's going to be so interesting to see how she handles, how Ayaka handles kind of. I expect the same. I think there's no reason for Sayaka to approach the fight any differently. As Jimmy says, does the Phantom Punch curse exist for this one, even though both have been featured here? That is still a myth, Jimmy. That is a myth. As Alvin says, wishing both competitors the best in this fight, as am I. I know I hate that one of them has to lose. I adore them both so much. Two of my favorite fighters, undeniably. Man. It's crazy. How important is it to strike into takedowns? I saw in the grappling breakdown that Ayaka enters into clinches with convincing strikes. Oh, it's incredibly important. I mean, it's all about making your opponent think one thing and then doing the other, right? A mental chess battle, which Ghost Phantom loves that. And I mean that it just limits your risk of taking damage in return, because if you just go in blindly, odds are much less likely, unless you're somebody super talented, which we spoke about like 2 weeks ago or so, like Ben Askren and Chael Sonnen in their primes, where they could just go right for the takedown and they'll get it because they're just that damn good at it. Citro says, inside low kicks, Ghost must be going crazy. Indeed. As Jin says, Ghost, what was it like going to Fight Ready and watching Whaley train? Drake, would you ever do a fighter's camp to interview them? I mean, I wouldn't need to do that to interview them, but sure, that is one path to do so. As Ghost says, it was great. I got to train with her jiu-jitsu coach and picked up new things. And the way she was drilling things was incredible to watch. Awesome to hear. As Chuck says, respectfully disagree, Drake. Beating one fighter doesn't make you the best. It means you have that particular fighter's number. I mean, what if she does it twice then? What if she doesn't act? To be the best, you got to beat the best, Chuck. I mean, she finished her, man. She finished her pretty easily. It was Sayaka Izawa. That was, I mean, I'm not saying in terms of legacy or anything like that right now. In terms of overall historical standing, obviously Ayaka is still up there. But no, I mean, right now, you cannot say. I do not think you can say that Ayaka Hamasaki is still number one after getting finished like that. And you're saying you can't just skip a whole division and then claim to be the best because you beat one fighter. But you beat the best fighter. You didn't beat just one fighter. You beat the one at the top. You beat the one who is better than everyone else. So why wouldn't that make you the best? And it's like simple math, in my opinion. So an interesting thought, though. An interesting thought. So, all right. My, oh my. We are over time, as I expected, but I think we did a pretty good job managing it there. I am so excited for this fight, for this card. I'm hoping that I will get to watch it live, because I will have a very early flight on Sunday. So I might have to watch it in the airport. We will see, but I don't know. Either way, I'm amped, as we're getting mixed opinions here about the thought. As Chuck also says, Ayaka may not be number one, but that doesn't make Izawa number one. Careers are built over a series of fights, not based on one or two against the same opponent. I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at. Right now, Sayaka is the number one because she just beat the number one. Finished the number one convincingly. And then, as you say, the career stuff right there. Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's no, you cannot say that Ayaka isn't the best historically over Izawa. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm saying right now, though. Right now. And he says, especially considering they're fighting in a made-up division. RIZIN only division. Yeah. Here nor there. I don't know who you'd put instead. We'll leave it at that. We'll agree to disagree on that one. So, as I mentioned, we'll be flying on Sunday, as I will be in Texas to cover the PFL next week, you guys, the kickoff of the regular season. So look forward to coverage there. And for that reason, I will see what happens with next week's show. We shall see. If it will be on Monday or Tuesday, I don't know. Depends on how the schedule looks. Maybe even Sunday. No, that would have to be later in the day. Who knows? It is going to be tricky figuring out the schedule. But either way, we'll make the best of it. Appreciate you guys so much, as always, for tuning in, whether you're new and watching and just lurking in the background or what have you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Go check out MMAmania.com on all social platforms, as well as the website itself, of course. I'm at DrakeRiggs _ on Twitter and Instagram. Mostly a Twitter guy. You can find all the content there. So yeah, another good show. A stacked lineup, as I said, as we're over. So I'll make it quick and snappy. A lot of shameless plugs to get out of the way. As I said, Brought Horizon episode 14. Planning to drop tomorrow. Got to get it uploaded and all that. And I'll let you guys know the lineup. As I said, Ayaka Hamasaki is on the show. Sarame is on the show. Then we got Kazuma Kuramoto, who's competing at RIZIN Trigger 3rd the day before RIZIN 35. And it's Spike Carlisle and Donnie Case, the two American boys who are back competing for RIZIN. Oh, Spike making his debut, but Johnny in the headliner. So look forward to that. Great 5-guest lineup. And then I have an interview with Jihin Radzuan, who defeated Itsuki Hirata at 1X recently. Just caught up with her, and so you can see that dropping tomorrow as well. Spoke with Liz Carmouche, who's fighting Juliana Velasquez in the title fight, the flyweight title fight for Bellator next weekend in Hawaii. So that was a good chat with Liz always. Planning to speak with Kana Watanabe soon as well before her fight. So get the flags out, you guys. If you want to do more questions for her like we did last time, pass them my way. And we'll be happy to get them in for Queen Kana, Pan Kana Alliance, you name it. So that'll be coming. And then, of course, I did mention the story I did, the big story I did, kind of the deeper, kind of crazy one with Randy Field, who is also competing next week, Bellator flyweight prospect. Crazy story of near-death experience she had. So that is out now. MMAmania.com. Talked about her fight too, of course, all that stuff, how she got an MA, whatnot. Big, long discussion. Great story. Really enjoyed putting that one together. Crazy. So go check that out, please. You guys would mean a lot. So, but all right, you guys. Good, fun way to end the show in the chat with a debate there about the tops of the rankings. But either way, I will see you guys. Well, it doesn't matter, Alvin. We'll worry about it next week or whenever. And as for BTL, you guys, I should mention that as I still am the champion. I don't know if we'll be defending this week. I know that Mike is wanting to get some non-title bouts out of the way, some grudge matches, but I'll be back soon enough to defend the crown. They're making me enjoy this first win, I guess. But yeah, so not sure if we'll be back Thursday for BTL, but soon enough. So either way, you guys, appreciate y'all so much. And I will see you next time. All right. Until then, enjoy the weekend and the great fights, you guys.